Hello and welcome back to Seawolf's Den. I'm Crafting Ron. Welcome to my crafting table again. Sometimes in my crafting, I'm given a challenge or given a request. Can't really call it being commissioned because I'm not really getting paid. But I do favors to some of my gaming friends, and sometimes they ask me to craft something for them. I've done it before, and I'm more than willing to do it again. Of course, a lot of folks are doing these Demon Lord adventures in D&D, I think. And a lot of folks have done this particular craft, and I'm going to just take my own twist on it. Juiblex, sort of an Abhoth-looking creature. The Lovecraftian creature called Abhoth, I think, inspired it, or maybe Juiblex inspired Abhoth. I don't know. It was kind of the god of slime, and so I'm going to craft my own take of it. I'm going to start with a base of 3 inches, which is huge. I have a bunch of these left over from some Skylander Giant crafts that I've done, and I still have a bunch of those. They were Happy Meal toys, and I'll show those off at one point, do a show and tell, and maybe I'll do another one. I've got an idea for one of the other ones I have stored away. But for Juiblex, I've got the base. I've got 2 of these just in case I screw up. So I've got a ton of new hot glue. So I'm just going to put that away. I'm actually really short on them, and I don't like these short sticks. I prefer the longer ones, but that's all they had. So I'm going to have to go with that. My plan is I'm going to get a foam stone base on the bottom of this. I'm going to just cut a foam base, then put a stand in it, probably a nail or a pin or something just in the middle of it, and make sure it's secure. I'll start with these. Somebody's done this before, and I like the way that was done. I'll start with these foam balls. I'm trying to, I was thinking of a 2-inch ball, but I might do the 2-inch ball. I think that's what that is. Smaller balls may be okay. And I'm going to probably take some beads and stick them inside there to give them the eyeballs. Excuse me. The key thing about Juiblex is that it's slimy and it's got kind of this center. I've got one picture in mind that I'm going to base it on. And this will be like right, I would probably say right about there. So I got to do a base, and then this can hover right above that base, and then I just fill in the rest with hot glue. What I'm thinking about doing is draping a wet paper towel or wet piece of tissue paper wet over it and put glue so I'll get an extra reinforcements. And then get the eyeballs in there or something. We'll see. I'm going to use this floral wire, which after I bought it is a lot more flexible than I had thought. But it can be used. I'm just going to poke it in and out of the hole and use that as support for more tendrils, more tentacles, more goo. I know that it likes to shoot stuff out, corrosive goo. I'm not really sure how to do that. So that's the start, and we'll go through. That's my design phase. I'll do each phase, try to film as many phases as I can. But I'm hoping to get this done in a short period of time, but we'll see. So here I am using the Hot Wire Factory freehand cutter to create these stones for the stone pedestal that my Juiblex is going to be perched on. My plan is to use a wooden skewer or a wooden dowel to kind of hold up the foam. So that's the end result, at least of the foam. Next is to kind of look at how I'm going to do the stand. So I grab a spare piece of a dowel and kind of picture how it's going to stand. And I know I'm still getting used to the camera being at my right side, and so I tend to put my hand in the way. So I'm sorry about that. This is just me kind of planning this out, and I think I finally decided to drill a hole through the first one and then have a second one at the bottom to hold it in, and use hot glue to kind of put it all together. So here I am doing that, getting the base all ready, and then placing the stones down. And then I use hot glue to roughen the bottom portion a little bit more, with the intent of covering that with some sand eventually. And that's the end result. Here I am measuring out how long the stick is going to be, and eventually I get my hand snips and cut off a portion of that dowel. The next stage is to add the sand to the base and the sand around the rocks. So I use some PVC glue, and I'm not very precise about it. It's okay to be a mess because it's supposed to look natural. I use some aquarium rocks that I've had ever since I was a kid, and add a little bit more stones at the bottom, and then we let it dry. Once dry, I start with the toilet paper. I got my little water spray bottle, and I'm going to try to drape it. First I tried with 2, and I figured that was too much, so I started with 1. Got everything wet and started draping it over it. I just needed some more support, especially down underneath the ball, so that it looks more fluid, more gooey, more oozy. And more PVC glue over the top, and I just used a random brush I had laying around to fill in the gaps, and then I got some beads. By this time, after I got the beads in, my daughter probably would have thought this would look pretty because of all the colors, pink and blue and yellow. Just constantly putting more and more glue on it, filling in some gaps. Just don't want to have to use so much hot glue over it. Then we moved on to the wires. These will support some of the tendrils that will come out, and I didn't overdo it with these. I just want to keep it limited. Much like the eyes, I didn't overdo those either. Last minute I decided I'm going to add a little more distortion to it. I cut one of the smaller balls in half and glued it to the side. Be a little bit more misshapen to the piece because I didn't necessarily like it completely round. Once that dried, we can start on the hot glue. I did a test first and it came out looking great, so I continued. The way I did this first was just filling in the gaps, but I really wanted it to look a certain kind of way, like it was organic and moving in all directions, not just pulled down by gravity. So I used a compressed air can. If you turn it upside down, the Freon or whatever it is inside comes out and freezes things. So it kind of freezes that hot glue in place. I continue to do that over and over again, especially on the tentacles, to make them more organic looking. You can be the judge of the final product. I went through probably like 6-8 sticks of hot glue to get this done, which tells you or tells you why I decided to use tissue paper, because I think I would have ended up using a lot more. Finishing that up, started taking the strands of hot glue off, because I feel like that took away from the model. Worked around the beads to kind of give them eyelids, and used the tip of the hot glue gun to kind of give striations in the body. This one I decided to go ahead and use Mod Podge around whatever foam was exposed after all this. I wanted to kind of give it a good layer, because I was just going to spray paint the whole thing. So I used a bottle of spray Mod Podge to give it a good layer, and then spray paint didn't get everything, so I ended up covering the rest up with basic black. Make sure everything was covered before I get into actually painting it. Here it is, completely primed. Moving on to Hunter Green and Pewter Gray. Put Pewter Gray on the dirt and the rocks. And Hunter Gray around the body. This is when I decided to go ahead and do some base painting on the eyeballs with some flat red. And I hit all the beads I could find, and then I just found extra spaces to add in some. Then I used some black paint and water to wash the rocks and what parts of the Juiblex I could. I did a couple of layers of that. And now it's all dry. We're going on to Timeless Gray to dry brush the base and the rocks. I got Wintergreen at first because I thought it would work, but I didn't like the result when I dry brushed the green. All right, it's done. I did a bunch of off-camera painting just because I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I'm still not the best at painting, but I really like what it ended up being because I just kept on throwing in variants of greens, and I had wintergreen and evergreen and holly branch and new shamrock, and of course the base is hunter green. I'm pretty happy with the end result. I texted the person that wanted it. She's happy, Christina Stiles. I game with her off and on, and I think that is it. I call this one done. Juiblex, finished product. I'm going to send this off to her. Until next time, and always remember, seek the wolf in thyself.